Put your hands where I can see them. The officer's voice cuts through the air like a whip. Jordan Carter freezes, his pulse hammering against his ribs. A wall of uniforms surrounds him, hands hovering near holsters, eyes sharp with suspicion. His voice catches. He's done nothing wrong. Just moments ago, he had been walking out of the cafe, scrolling through his phone. Now, red and blue lights flash in his peripheral vision, and every breath feels like borrowed time. Bystanders whisper, some recording, others frozen in place. But no one speaks for him. The weight of their silence is deafening. He was harassing me. A shrill voice slices through the tension. Karen Whitmore clutches her purse, eyes wide with feigned terror. Her breath hitches, her entire body trembling, an actress in the performance of her life. Jordan exhales sharply. That's a lie. Karen flinches, as if his words alone are an act of violence. He followed me. He grabbed my arm. I thought I was going to die. The officers exchange glances. One grips his baton tighter. The shift in the air is immediate. It doesn't matter that Jordan stands composed. Karen's fear, however false, is louder than his truth. Jordan moves slowly, pulling out his wallet. He keeps his voice level. I'm a lawyer. My name is Jordan Carter. He extends his ID, his credentials, his proof. The officer barely glances at it. His jaw remains tight, his posture rigid. Step back. Jordan's grip tightens around his wallet. His tailored suit, his professional demeanor. It means nothing in this moment. To them, he is not a man who has spent years defending justice. He is just another suspect. Officer, this is a mistake. He tries again. A hand lands on his shoulder, firm, unyielding. Turn around, now. The air thickens with unspoken words. Someone in the crowd raises their phone, capturing every moment. Others exchange uneasy glances, shifting on their feet. A young woman whispers, "Should we do something?" Her friend hesitates. I don't know. What if he really did? Jordan hears them. The doubt, the hesitation, the quiet betrayal. He meets their eyes, searching for an ally. None step forward. The officer's grip tightens. You're resisting? Jordan's stomach knots. He isn't. He's standing still just like they want, but it doesn't matter. It never does. The metallic bite of the cuffs shocks his wrists. His jaw clenches. Wait! Jordan tries, but the officer yanks him forward. His pulse roars in his ears. Karen exhales, a dramatic shudder of relief. Then her lips twitch, a smirk, subtle, triumphant. Jordan's chest tightens. She knows exactly what she's done. The sirens wail as he's shoved into the back seat. Through the window, he sees the crowd shifting, restless. Some are still recording, others averting their gaze. Karen tucks her hair behind her ear, her performance complete. But this story isn't over, not even close. Jordan Carter's world was shaped by struggle. His mother, a nurse working double shifts, kept their tiny apartment warm with love and sacrifice. Education is your way out, Jordan, she'd say, her voice weary but firm. He listened. Books became his escape, the courtroom his goal. Growing up, he saw too many lives torn apart by a justice system that didn't serve them. He vowed to be different, to be a voice for those who had none. Years later, he stood in court, defending the very people he grew up with. But change was slow, and the system didn't forget where he came from. Jordan had the degrees, the knowledge, the talent. Yet the world saw something else first. "Excuse me, defendants sit on the other side," a bailiff once told him before trial. "I'm the defense attorney," Jordan replied, voice steady. Even after being appointed one of the youngest federal judges in his state, he wasn't immune. Partners at law firms questioned his credentials. Strangers assumed he was staff, not a leader. Every step forward felt like pushing against an invisible wall. Success had come, but respect was rationed. No matter how much he proved himself, doubt still clung to him like a shadow. Recognition didn't shield him. It amplified the weight of expectations. At luxury stores, security trailed him. At conferences, colleagues asked which firm he interned for. Even in restaurants, waiters hesitated before handing him the bill, assuming he wasn't the one paying. Jordan learned to navigate it all. He smiled when he wanted to scowl, explained himself when he shouldn't have to. He played the game because losing meant doors shutting forever. But inside, frustration simmered. He had fought so hard to belong, yet the world still saw him as an outsider. And then, one evening, it all came crashing down. The cold metal of the cuffs still burned against his wrists. Jordan sat in the squad car, staring at his reflection in the partition glass. He had defended clients in cases like this. He had given speeches about reform. Yet here he was, trapped in the very cycle he had fought to break. His heart pounded. This wasn't about a misunderstanding. It wasn't about Karen's lie. It was about a system designed to doubt him, no matter how high he climbed. He exhaled slowly. This wasn't just about him. It never was. And that meant the fight wasn't over. Jordan sat stiffly, his hands still tingling from the too tight cuffs. The officer across from him barely glanced at his ID, flipping it shut with a smirk. "You expect me to believe this?" the cop scoffed. "A federal judge here?" Jordan kept his voice steady. "Yes, and if you check my record, you'll see—" The officer leaned forward. "What I see is another suspect trying to talk his way out." Jordan inhaled sharply. This wasn't ignorance. It was deliberate. He had spent years fighting for justice, but now, trapped in this cold room, he was just another black man they refused to believe. Jordan reached for his pocket instinctively. Empty. "My phone? Confiscated," the officer said, arms crossed. Jordan exhaled. "I need to call my assistant. She'll verify who I am." A laugh. "You don't get to make demands." His jaw clenched. He knew his rights, knew the law better than anyone in this building. Yet it didn't matter. His words carried no weight here. He pressed his palms against the table, forcing calm. "I want my lawyer." The officer smirked. "Funny, you people always think that changes things." Jordan leaned back, his pulse pounding. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting against an entire system. The door swung open. Karen. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched her arms, the very picture of a trembling victim. "He was just there," she whimpered. "I felt so unsafe." Jordan's stomach twisted. She had barely looked at him before screaming in the park, but now she was a performer on the stage, and the officers were her eager audience. "You did the right thing," one officer assured her. "Men like him think they can go anywhere." Her breath hitched. "I thought he was following me. I was so scared." Jordan's hands curled into fists under the table. He knew the script. She was the fragile woman. He was the dangerous shadow. One officer patted her back. "You're so brave." Jordan watched, his mind screaming, but his lips stayed shut. He had spent his life proving himself. Yet, in this moment, he was powerless against a single lie. Jordan inhaled slowly, steadying himself. He had faced injustice before, felt the sting of doubt, the burden of expectations. But this was something else. The officers spoke to Karen in hushed tones, offering tissues, assuring her she was safe. Safe? From what? A glance in a public park? One turned to him. You need to understand why she was afraid. Jordan's nails dug into his palms. Why was she afraid? Not why he was in handcuffs. Not why his identity was ignored. Not why his voice meant nothing. He locked eyes with Karen, and for the first time she hesitated. A flicker of guilt, but it didn't matter. Her fear was their truth. His reality was irrelevant. Jordan clenched his jaw. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about the fight that had never ended. And he wasn't done fighting. Jordan's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion heavy in his bones. When he finally picked it up, his assistant's voice trembled. "You need to see this." A link popped up. He hesitated, then tapped. His own face stared back, vacant eyes the harsh lighting of a police station. The headline screamed, "Powerful judge accused of harassment. Is anyone safe?" His stomach turned. Article after article painted him as a wealthy black man abusing his privilege. Not a respected judge, not a mentor, just another headline in a story already written. His achievements, erased, his years of service, irrelevant. He scrolled down. The comments were worse. Typical. Always knew he was shady. Lock him up. Jordan gripped the phone tighter. One accusation. One lie. And just like that, everything he had built was crumbling. The phone rang again, this time his publicist. "We have a problem." Jordan exhaled. "I know." "It's worse than you think. Sponsors are backing out. Your book deal on hold and..." A pause. "Some of your partners are reconsidering their association." Of course they were. The court of public opinion had ruled overnight. No trial, no evidence, just perception. "I've worked my whole life for this," Jordan said, voice tight. "I know, but people don't care about facts. They care about what feels true." The words hit harder than they should have. It was always like this, wasn't it? A lifetime of proving himself, and still, all it took was one false narrative to unravel everything. "Damage control," he muttered. "We fight back." But deep down, he knew. Once your name was tainted, people rarely cared about the truth. Karen's face filled his screen. Live now. Thousands watching. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke. No woman should have to feel unsafe just getting coffee. The comments flooded in. "You're so strong." "Men like him think they can get away with anything." "We believe you." Jordan's jaw tightened. She was milking this, playing the helpless victim while his life fell apart. He clicked onto her Twitter feed. A pinned post read, "Speaking out isn't easy, but silence is worse." Below, a donation link. She was profiting off a lie. His fists clenched. This had gone too far. The office was silent. Jordan sat behind his desk, fingers pressed against his temples. He was out on bail, but that didn't matter. His name was still tarnished, his life still in shambles. A knock at the door. His assistant peeked in, hesitant. "Jordan?" He looked up, eyes dark with frustration. "Do they even care that it's a lie?" She hesitated. Right now, people care about what's loudest. His chest burned with anger. He had spent years upholding justice. Now, it was time to fight for his own. His assistant took a deep breath. "You need to see this." Jordan sighed. Another headline? Number A court case, hers. His brows furrowed. "Karen?" She nodded. "She's got an upcoming fraud trial, and guess who's the assigned judge?" The room stilled. Jordan stared at her, realization dawning. For the first time in days, the weight in his chest shifted. Justice had a strange way of circling back. Karen adjusted the sleeves of her designer blazer, striding into the courtroom with an air of confidence. Her lawyer walked beside her, murmuring, "Just stick to the script." deny, deflect, and let me handle the rest. She smirked. Please, it's just a misunderstanding. They'll see that. The charges? Alleged real estate fraud, selling non-existent properties to elderly clients, pocketing their life savings, then vanishing. But Karen wasn't worried. She had talked her way out of worse. The prosecutor cleared his throat. The defendant, Karen Whitmore, is accused of orchestrating a fraudulent scheme. Karen barely listened. She had connections, influence, money. No judge would... Presiding over this case, the bailiff's voice rang out. Karen turned toward the bench, expression smug. Then she saw him. Her breath hitched. Jordan. Her world tilted, her stomach twisting as his steady gaze met hers. This couldn't be happening. Karen swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry. Jordan sat behind the bench, his face unreadable. No, this wasn't possible. She had ruined him. The media had dragged his name through the dirt. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be finished. She forced a shaky smile, whispering to her lawyer, This is a conflict of interest, right? He can't... The lawyer's expression darkened. He hasn't recused himself. That means he's in control. Karen's fingers tightened around the table's edge. Jordan flipped through the case file, his voice calm. Miss Whitmore, you stand accused of defrauding multiple elderly homeowners, amounting to millions in damages. He finally looked up. How do you plead? Karen's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The room felt smaller. This was supposed to be her game. But now the rules have changed. Karen's hands trembled as she adjusted her collar. She had always been the one in control, the one dictating the narrative. But now, with Jordan staring down at her, the power had shifted. Her lawyer leaned in. Pull yourself together. Say not guilty, and let me do the rest. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The prosecutor spoke. Your Honor, given the substantial evidence, the state intends to proceed with full charges. Karen felt the stares, the jury, the press, the victims' families, her victims. She gritted her teeth. She couldn't let this happen. Your Honor, if I may, her lawyer began, but Karen's voice finally broke through. I need a moment. Jordan didn't blink. You have 5 seconds. Her stomach clenched. The courtroom was watching, waiting. For the first time in her life, Karen had nothing to say. Jordan leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, before we proceed, do you have anything to say to the court? Karen's throat tightened. She knew this was his way of giving her an opening. To confess, to salvage what little dignity she had left. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down. Her lawyer nudged her. Say nothing, let me handle it. But silence wouldn't save her now. Jordan's voice remained steady. You spent months curating a narrative about me, convincing the world of a lie. He exhaled, measured. Now, the evidence speaks for itself. Will you? Karen's pulse pounded. If she spoke, she risked exposing the truth. If she stayed silent, she was at his mercy. Her lips parted. The courtroom was silent. And for the first time, Karen Whitmore had no idea how this would end. Karen's voice cracked. Your Honor, this is a mistake. I wasn't in my right mind. Her lawyer tensed beside her, but she pressed on, panic spilling into her words. I was under extreme stress, the pressure. I wasn't thinking clearly. Jordan didn't flinch. I have medical records, mental health struggles. This isn't who I am. Her hands trembled. Please, I need help, not punishment. A long pause, then Jordan's expression hardened. Help? His voice was ice. Or another escape? Jordan leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, I've seen your type before. privileged, deceitful, and always ready with an excuse. Karen shook her head, tears welling. No, he cut her off. You didn't hesitate when you stole from those families. You didn't pause when you destroyed lives. His voice remained steady. You don't get to rewrite the story now. The courtroom was silent. Karen's breath hitched as he delivered the words that sealed her fate. By the time the gavel struck, the world had already taken notice. Real estate fraudster Karen Whitmore sentenced. The woman who lied her way to the top and fell. Judge Jordan delivers justice. News anchors dissected every detail. Social media buzzed with outrage. Karen had once manipulated public perception, but now the headlines weren't hers to control, and the world was finally watching her fall. Karen sat frozen, the weight of reality sinking in. No more power, no more privilege, no more carefully crafted lies to shield her. Tears streamed down her face as cameras flashed, capturing her downfall. The same people who once praised her now whispered in disgust. She had used the system to ruin lives. Now it had turned against her. And for the first time, no one was coming to save Karen Whitmore. What do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved? Or was the punishment too harsh? Should people like her be given second chances, or is justice finally catching up? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. Your opinion matters, and we want to hear every perspective. If you believe in karma, hit that like button. And if you love powerful, eye-opening stories about justice, subscribe now and turn on notifications. We bring you the most gripping tales that challenge perspectives and spark real conversations. Don't miss the next story. It's one you won't forget.